I would like to share with you a phrase that I usually hear from the students, and now that they're gone, I can share with you some of the secrets and the things that they tell me. A very common phrase that I hear from them, when we go to a retreat or an activity, an event, something that we are putting together is, I came with no expectations so that there may be no frustration. And maybe we have even said that ourselves, and it's a very common expression, we think, and it's true, I think, that the lower our expectations, the lower our frustrations are going to be about something. But I would like to suggest today also that the lower our expectations are, also the lower our level of joy. And so if we want to know how to rejoice in the Lord today, we need to raise our expectations. We need to maybe adjust them so that they are the right expectations and our joy may be fulfilled. When expectations are too high, we can get frustrated. When expectations are too low, we don't rejoice in the things that we do as much as we could. When the expectations about something are unknown, that creates a great deal of confusion. When you go to an activity and you have no idea what to expect about that, it's a stressor for sure. We can say, to simplify all this, that frustration comes from the past, an expectation that wasn't fulfilled. But joy, on the contrary, comes from the future, an expectation that isn't fulfilled yet. And that is the great Christian joy. So my invitation today is that we may move from frustration into joy. That we may be able to take that step from frustrations in our lives, from wrong expectations, into the true Christian joy. And for that we need to adjust our expectations for this Christmas. In life, sooner or later, we all have the experience of how things end up disappointing us. We put such an expectation on some things, a trip, an event, an encounter with a person, a celebration, a feast, something that is coming up. We put, a lot of expectations on that. And when the joy of the moment is past, many times we end up disappointed. Especially if they don't meet our expectations. And that happens because we ask of some things of this world too much, things that they cannot give us. We have the wrong expectation about some of them, and so our joy is never fulfilled, and we end up frustrated. This is not true of God, however. With God, the more we expect, the more joy we can receive. So this week is a key week to adjust our expectations and raise them. The joy of what is coming is the true Christian joy, for we are people of hope. We rejoice in hope, in the hope of what is coming. We are people of hope. We are constantly expecting the Messiah to come. We are expecting the Messiah to come and to come more deeply into our lives, to change us from within, to do something new in us, to renew us in some different way in this Christmas. They may not be the same as it was last year, but something new that the Messiah can bring. We are people of hope. We are always looking forward to that final joy that will come one day without end. But in that expectation, we also rejoice. We read in the first reading today from the prophet Isaiah, the first prophet of the Old Testament. And in the Gospel, we read about the life of St. John the Baptist. We can name him the last prophet in the New Testament. And they are both great examples of people who didn't rejoice in the banquet, but they prepared for it. They rejoiced in the preparation. They rejoiced in the expectation. So one day when John was able to see the coming of the Messiah, he rejoiced. And his joy was truly fulfilled because his expectations were right. So they teach us today true Christian joy, the joy of expecting Christ to come deeper into our lives. This is the last week before Christmas. Next Sunday we will be celebrating Christmas Eve. And it's a week that usually goes on with, a lot of preparations and a lot of running, especially if you're hosting people, if the family is coming together, if you're cooking for the celebration, there's a great deal of stress that comes also with this last week. We need to prepare all these different things. But I want to suggest also that we may focus on true Christian joy, on raising our expectations in this week. A week to adjust our expectations and spiritualize them so that our joy may be fulfilled. And let me share with you 3 ways that we can follow in order to raise our expectations in this last week before Christmas. The first one is prepare prayerfully. Prepare prayerfully. We have to prepare many things this week, as I said, and that's okay because we need to get ready for the celebration. But we can choose if all those preparations are going to take us away from what is most important, or they are going to help us raise our expectations. My first proposal today is to invite Christ to your home in this Christmas as your guest. Invite him in your heart. Tell him, Lord, I know you are coming. I know you are coming as you came to Bethlehem. You are coming into my heart. I invite you to my home. You will be my special guest in this Christmas. And so when you prepare for things, prepare everything for him, as if he is coming. When you prepare the food, when you prepare the chairs, the decorations, think that Jesus will come into that home. If you have to work on the house, if you have to, buy a last-minute gift this week, think that Christ is your guest and he is coming to your home. And this is not just an exercise of the mind, because this is the deepest theological truth of this whole season, that Christ is coming. He is coming to your home, the home of your heart, of course. But thinking that he will come to your actual home may help you to prepare more prayerfully. So do all these preparations in a prayerful way. You can listen to Christmas carols if that helps, and so that you keep that joyful mood and you prepare with joy for the coming of Christ into your home. In that way, you will unite your preparation to raising your expectations on the upcoming feast. So that's the first one, to prepare prayerfully. But the second one is to contemplate silently. Even in the midst of all these things that we need to prepare, we need to devote time to silent contemplation. We need to go back to the manger. We need to go back to silence, to the silent night, and to be able to contemplate. So my second proposal is that we may devote every day some minutes to contemplate the manger, the nativity scene, so that we can regain focus and joy and peace at the nativity scene. The first nativity scene was created by St. Francis of Assisi, many years ago, of course. When he came back from a trip to northern Africa, where he went to evangelize at the time of the Crusades, he went to evangelize the Muslim people. And he came back really after decades. And when he goes back to the valley of Umbria, where he lived, he realized that the faith of the people have grown very cold. No one was celebrating Christmas anymore. Yeah, they were getting together and, and dining together, but they were not celebrating Christmas together. Their faith was as cold as the winter outside. And so Francis went to one of his faithful parishioners and asked him to invite everyone to a cave in the mountain that they all knew. And he talked to some specific people and asked them to be Joseph, Mary, and the shepherds and the Magi. And so everybody gathered in that cave on Christmas Eve at midnight, and they celebrated the Mass. Francis was the deacon for the Mass. And at that Mass, contemplating the nativity scene, their faith was rekindled. The fire came back to their hearts. So that's my same proposal for this week, to contemplate the manger, to contemplate the nativity scene, so that we can regain focus and peace in this last week before Christmas. And the third proposal to raise our expectations is to await intentionally. Through this week, ask the Lord, what do you need the most in your life, truly and deeply in your heart? Ask the Lord, what do you have to ask for in this Christmas Mass this year? What's your intention going to be at that Mass? And through this whole week, plan that. What are you going to ask in that moment when the Christmas Mass starts and we all think of the intentions that we bring? What do you want to ask this Christmas? What do you need the most? You know, some lives of the saints were changed forever at a Christmas day. The life of Mary was changed forever at a Christmas day. It's just a matter of asking and knowing wisely what to ask on that day. So my last invitation is to await intentionally, to be thinking, what do I want to ask for in this upcoming feast of Christmas? We are invited to rejoice in this Sunday, to grow in that rejoicing. And maybe that's not the feeling in our hearts today. But if we do raise our expectations for the coming of Christ, if we spiritualize more that expectation that we have for this upcoming feast of Christmas, we may be able to rejoice in the Lord, for He is near, as St. Paul invites us. It's not something that we have to come up with ourselves, this joy, but joy comes to us, because joy is an encounter with Christ, who is coming to us in this Christmas. So let us raise our expectations and let the Lord bring joy to your life.